Checking in with National Senator Bridget McKenzie and Labor Senator Katie Gallagher. I'm pleased to say they're in the studio tonight. Would you please welcome Katie and Bridget?
Great to be here.
Feeling a bit nervous tonight? A few jitters?
Absolutely. It's the night before the big game.
You've been putting on the Jenka rub out the back, have you?
Goanna oil.
So, Kerry, I think you've got some questions.
Oh, well, one of the things
Not
that's...
hard ones.
I'll try. One of the things that's really struck me with this campaign, it was a conventional wisdom that the Conservative side of politics did somewhat better with women than with men, and that the Labor side did better with men than with women. And that's been flipped on its head this time. So seeing Julia Gillard line up there, that's not accidental, is it? It's fair to say, I think, that she struck at Scott Morrison's Achilles heel at this election. Bridget?
Well, I think it's fantastic to see Julia on the campaign. I mean, she's one Prime Minister who's actually left the Prime Ministership with grace and integrity and is an example for all. But in terms of the female vote, I've been on pre-poll all week, and I can tell you that young women in particular are incredibly enamoured with the Prime Minister's housing package that he announced, them being able to access their superannuation to buy their first home. And they know that irrespective of whether you're male or female, we need a strong economy to provide the essential services that Australians need and deserve, whether it's record funding into aged care, disability services, education or health.
So it's over now, really. So how important is the women's vote for Labor?
It's a really important part of the community, 50% of the community.
Yeah.
So
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking in terms of their capacity to deliver specifically in this election.
well, I think they're looking for a party that's going to represent them, that's going to respect them, that's going to address some of the issues that they're finding really hard. So things like our childcare policy. You know, you talk to a lot of working women now. That's an area where it's really hard. If you've got a couple of kids in childcare, it's really expensive, and, you know, sometimes you can't work that extra day. So definitely, you know, I think part of women has, you know, the women's issues, if you want to say it like that, has been a real feature of this parliament, you know, and women are switched on and they want their political leadership to respect them and to listen to them and to respond to them.
And
I
Katie,
don't disagree with that.
Do you think that the housing policy, Bridget, has meant that young women have completely forgiven Scott Morrison on all the missteps that he's had over the last 3 years when it comes to really listening to what women's concerns are?
So when we look at some of those women's issues, shall we say, in the last parliament, they were not restricted or contained to one side of politics or the other, and everyone needs to be really clear about that. And together, the parliament has decided to reform our culture as a workplace, and that's a good thing. And we've accepted all the recommendations from the Jenkins Review and look forward to whoever wins
It took a while
on
for that to
Saturday.
happen, though.
Well, sorry, these things do take time. We had to consult with
the
ex
Prime
and former
Minister did
staff.
nothing for years on that.
I serve in the Cabinet of Australia that has the most female politicians in it in our country's history. I was also the first female agriculture minister. So to actually say that our side of politics, women can't find themselves in that space, I'm always a great believer in you can't be what you can't see. And I've taken my role as a female leader in the coalition very seriously in terms of being able to give that proposition to the Australian public that do vote for our side of politics.
Katie, Labor has always faced this argument that it can't be trusted with the economy. You're the Shadow Finance Minister.
Yep.
You announced your costings this week.
Yep.
You're adding a $7.4 billion to the deficit over 4 years. Haven't you just proved their point?
No, not at all. I mean, in fact, you know, we've announced a waste audit that I would lead in government if I win my seat and we win the election, and that's really about uncovering some of the buckets of cash that have been stashed away and hidden away in the budget. But also that difference is about investing in the long term. So childcare, aged care, skills and cleaner and cheaper energy. You know, these are the challenges that have been left drifting for 10 years under this government, and we need to tackle them, we need to invest in them, and then they return an economic dividend. So we've been upfront and honest about it. We think there is a difference tomorrow at this campaign when people go to vote, and it is about, you know, an opposition seeking government that's going to take these challenges seriously, make the investments needed, but return economic dividend to the budget. And we will be fiscally responsible. I mean, I know Bridget will probably be dying with the scare campaign to roll out. I can almost hear it. I can hear it. It's coming. It's coming.
for it.
But you know, Jim and I have been very clear. We will be fiscally responsible, but we need to make investments that are going to drive the productive side of the economy and deal with some of these challenges long term. Over to you.
Bring your worst.
Katie. And can I just say to the ACT voters, don't vote Pocock. Vote, if you're going to go left greenies, go for Katie.
Is that the leader of the Nats in the Senate endorsing Katie Gallagher for the ACT
over
Senate
Pocock,
spot?
absolutely. I'm sorry. The worst thing that can happen to the over 8 million Australians that I represent out in rural and regional Australia is to have more Greens in Parliament.
You're talking about the
And so
independent
I'm just getting back
candidate
to the
David Pocock,
costings.
former Wallaby.
Yes, I am. Thanks, Hamish, for tidying
Well, I
up the
think
details.
I personally think one of the worst things that can happen is just blanking on a person's name, which the Prime Minister had a little bit of trouble with today in Perth, giving his local support to candidate Christy McSweeney. I'm pretty sure that's what her name was.
And so, you know, there are many projects, and I can tell there's a very long list of what Christy's been able to achieve, I can tell you. She's done an absolutely wonderful job, Kirsty. And as you can see with the great work that she's been able to achieve.
I mean, have you ever had that problem where you're blanking on a person's name, you go one way, it's like Vangelis, and then just going Vangelis. So, like, Bridget, have you ever had that problem?
All right.
When you have those moments, though, it's tough, right?
Been a lot.
At the moment, there's a lot of
Yep.
microscopes from dickheads like me out there.
Well, you've seen,
Yeah.
you know, the pressures of the campaign. Anthony Albanese has felt true and hard. If you think running in an election campaign for the last 6 weeks tough, try running an economy over $2 trillion. Try dealing with the regional instability that we're seeing geopolitically. We've got a war in Ukraine. We've got pressures in our own regions. And we've got an economy that we want to continue to grow forward. So Albo may have forgotten some numbers, but he has seriously proven to the Australian people that he is not up for the job.
Which I
You need to have
100% disagree with, of course.
What a surprise.
But, you know, that moment, there is moments, you know, where you go blank. I think that, you know, you've got to accept.
Everyone's
He had a few.
tried.
You cannot
you
afford to
gotta-
be blank
Well, I'm not talking... No.
when you're having serious discussions with global
Well,
leaders.
we just
You're
saw
getting off
your
to the pod
leader
meeting.
do
Yeah, but if
exactly
you
the
can't
same
remember
thing.
someone's
He's just
name.
forgotten a person's name.